Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guest may not represent those of the host of the station. Folks, I had an epiphany today, actually last night, but I really thought about it today. And I just want to thank everyone who listens. I am truly, truly honored and blessed to be able to have a platform where I can use my voice to help other people and to have experts on my show who can help you, the audience, have a better quality of life. And I just want to change the world or make the world a better place in the time that I have left, which no one knows how long that is, on this earth. And I know that's my mission. I know that is what I was called to do. And I just want to thank Passionate World Talk Radio Network, Lillian Caldwell, and who's CEO, and Jeannie White, who's the station manager, for giving me the opportunity these 5.5 years to do that. And thank you, the audience. And with me today is an amazing person. I am so fortunate to meet all these wonderful people. With me today is Lafaya, I'm going to spell the name, Lafaya Mitchell. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a poker player, and reluctant but happy mother of 6, is on a mission to calm the effects of, quote, red alert brain, quote. She aspires to share her life-changing philosophy, the Lafaya way, created in over 20 years of real life and professional experiences with the world. She published 3 books in the Lafaya Way parenting series, recently co-authored a #1 international bestseller, Speechless, giving that hashtag voiceless a voice, and that's in quotes. I love the name of that. And authored international bestseller, Poker, A Woman's Game, the Poker Therapist Mental Game Strategies for Winning. Since the Lafaya Way is essentially the pathway to fostering living a life in alignment with your truest intentions, Lafaya has found a way to apply her 4-step methodology used in therapy to battle temporary interruption in logical thinking in poker and low performance in competition-based environments. And Lafaya has a podcast, The Lafaya Way, Mastering the Mental Game of Life. And she is a therapist at Peace of Mind Therapeutic Solutions. I tell you, folks, Google Lafaya Mitchell, because there's just so much about Lafaya. She is amazing. I'm so happy to have you on. Welcome, Lafaya Mitchell, to Chatting with Betsy.
Thank you so much, Betsy, for that wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here speaking with such a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm happy that you were here. You have so much. So I don't know where to go first.
No.
I have to say this. You know, the title of the book that you recently co-authored, Speechless, giving hashtag voiceless a voice, that touched me, Lafaya.
Yeah.
That really deeply touched me, and I'll tell you and the audience why. Because there's people who either they can't or they won't speak up, or people don't give them the opportunity to speak. I know I speak for those who can't, speak for those who won't, and I know what it's like not being given an opportunity to speak for whatever reason. And that's why I'm so grateful to Lillian Caldwell, who created Passionate World Talk Radio Network, because nobody would give her a chance, so she created her own internet radio station so people can have a voice. And that's why that really touched me. Can you talk about that book for a little bit?
I can. Oh, my goodness. Okay. I was actually invited. This was an anthology, so it was a book made up of multiple. So we had about 8 of us, 8 authors. Okay, and I was invited to bring my perspective on what it feels like to be a person that is on the autism spectrum that is higher functioning. Now, I use the term higher functioning even though I don't quite agree with it. I'm not in love with it. But that's what's known out there, so I'll just let it stand. But I'm speaking about those who they're so different that they don't quite, fit in with the rest of the world, but they're so high functioning that often the world is not able to recognize their challenges. So they can be seen in many ways as, defiant or, disrespectful or, just selfish. There are a lot of different things out there that, a lot of assumptions that people make when they look at another person and they see certain behaviors or they see them kind of shut down at certain times or they're not able to speak up for themselves at certain times when they are able to do that at other times. So what I spoke up about was kind of that experience, just there are language processing difficulties with those on the spectrum, all of those on the spectrum, but on the higher functioning, in quotes, higher functioning end, they can at one moment be able to express themselves and say what they need to say, and in another moment be completely shut down in a way, and I'm talking about their brains literally can't process what to say or how to say it in certain upset moments, okay? And they become so shut down that they are rendered speechless, okay? So my particular chapter I called Poked Speechless because, of course, I love poker, so I always throw some words like that in there. But also it's to show that sometimes the becoming speechless is something that is provoked, something that they can't help, that if there's a stressor on board, all of a sudden there they are speechless.
Wow. Lafaya, if you were in front of me, I'm telling you, I would hug you. I would hug you because this is like, I couldn't even align this, folks. My son, Josh, is on the spectrum, and he's high functioning. So I've very much into, and I have interviewed many people with various disabilities, and those who have high functioning autism, and some of them have Asperger's. And I totally understand because sometimes, like, I think my son understands me, but he doesn't.
Right.
And when he was younger, he didn't want to tell people he didn't understand because he was embarrassed. And I said, Josh, it's better for you to say, can you repeat it very slowly? I don't understand, than for someone to think you understand and you don't, and then you do something that they didn't want you to do. So it's better just to, have them repeat themselves. If they don't like it, well, that's too bad. So, see, that's my jersey. That's my jersey. Excuse me.
I love it.
So I can really relate to that, and that's when I saw that, the title. I said I have to ask you about that because it really just hit me, and I said, I got to know more about this because
oh my goodness,
it's just what, folks, and I say this on my show all the time. Every single person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect.
Yes.
And that's all that people want. And I can't stand it, Lafay, when someone is, mistreated because they're in a wheelchair or because they use a cane or a walker, and people don't even acknowledge them or think they can't think.
That's right.
It just drives me nuts.
Oh my goodness. I am the same. With that, I actually make it. I actually intentionally make sure that I address, especially because I know how people in wheelchairs are treated like they're invisible, right? As if they don't either like they don't exist or like all of a sudden they're, because maybe their legs don't work, that nothing else functions as well. I guess I don't know what the weird assumptions are, but I make it a point to sit down and we have conversations, and sometimes they're just like, oh my goodness, just almost like, thank you for treating me like a human being, because like they are, right? And so yeah, but oh my goodness, I didn't know we had so much in common, because the reason that I'm really passionate about this subject is because my daughters, what would have been called Asperger's before they took the diagnosis away for political reasons, I guess, or but some stuff that happened in the past. I wish they would come up with another name, though. That would be nice. But
yeah,
but to replace it, but they haven't done that. But my daughter, she's higher functioning autism, and she would shut down in school. She was mainstream, but she would shut down if the teacher would call on her with no warning. Okay, her social anxiety was so high, she was literally rendered speechless. Like, she could not. The teacher would think that she was being defiant, or just not right, or trying not to answer the question. But it was that my daughter, if you called on her without her expecting you to, she just shut down. Like, the brain, no operation, right? Other than pure panic. And so after a teacher reached out to me about it, I was like, oh, it's for this reason. And here's what you do. Before you call on her, let her know 2 students before. After 2 students, I'm going to call on you, so that she has time to prepare her mind for this to happen, right? And then they had no struggles with her from that point forward. And what I would do every year is I would go out to the teachers and I would explain to them, hey, here are a couple of my daughter's challenges. So here's how you prevent shutdown behavior, and let me know if I can assist you in any other way, right? Keep her out of trouble.
Wow.
But, yeah.
I had to tell my son's teachers when he was younger that he loves routine. And so if there's a fire drill and he couldn't take noise when he was younger, that he might freak out and cry, and that the routine has changed. It's just that you kind of have to prepare him that there's a change. I mean, I know you can't if there's a fire drill, but if you do know there's a fire drill, maybe you can let him know that this is going to happen so he doesn't freak out. There's just so many things that people, they don't understand in dealing with people who have difficulty with processing and sensory stimuli, that noises could just send people off. But, thank you for discussing that. So your chapter is called Speechless?
It's called Poked Speechless. Like, like you get a poke.
Okay.
But I use poke because I play off of, the word poker, because I throw in some examples, just of how, when I spoke to that red alert brain, how a red alert brain, I use a poker example of going into red alert brain, right? And then kind of led into talking about how being sent into that mode, that space, can cause a person to become speechless, basically.
Wow. That is amazing. I'll tell you, folks, I'm blessed. I am to have these experts on. I had no idea that Lafaya and I had so much in common. What is red alert brain? I don't even know what that is. Red alert brain. If you have ever had a chance to see the movie Inside Out,
yes, they take all the feelings and they put physical form to them, right?
Yeah, that was cute. Yeah. That was a cute movie.
It's a cute movie, and if you haven't seen it, go out and see the movie if you really want to understand red alert brain. But it's like the Will Rogers, we have a problem here. Of the brain.
Yeah.
So the brain, once triggered in any tough way, and it could be triggers, of course, we know are different for all people. Again, sensory, like you said, sensory sensitivities can bring it on, or many other things, or triggering from past experiences, whatever it is, can cause our brains to go into what I call red alert mode. Red alert mode is when we get into those feelings of extreme upset, panic, those kind of things. So it's basically our brain's like warning system. Like, here we are, there's a problem here. We need to regulate and get things figured out in order to kind of get back into the blue, into a good space.
Yes. Oh, you know what? I enjoyed that movie. I'm a big kid.
Me too.
I'm 67 years old, and I tell you what, I related to that movie so much, and I discussed it with Josh because we saw it together, and I said, you know what? Don't we feel like that? We get anxiety. We get embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
A very relatable movie for people of all ages. That's for sure. That's one of the few movies I really did enjoy. I hope they make another one. I don't think if they had a first one. I didn't see that one.
Oh wait, no, they did. I think they have two. Inside Out 1 and 2, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't see the first one, but the second one I really enjoyed. It just came out last summer, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I believe so.
it came out.
What I do know, because time blends for me, but what I do know
me too.
is that they were both really good movies. But yeah, it's that red alert brain that I speak to is also what it's also what I call that tilt mode, that TILT, what you described, temporary interruption in logical thinking. That's what happens when we enter into red alert brain. We're not quite able to get our logical thoughts going at that time. We're more pure, like animal brain, pure emotion at that point.
That is, it's interesting because sometimes, your brain, I feel like sometimes my brain just freezes, especially with anxiety. And I used to be able to handle anxiety very well, like if I had trouble with appliances. But I don't know, since my husband died, since being a caregiver, just like my dryer needs to be fixed, that put me in high anxiety. I got so anxious over that, and I usually don't, I never was like that before. It's just something that, I don't know, I get like that, and I have to calm myself down. I do my breathing, and I guess it's going to be okay. It's not my fault. I guess because of in the environment I grew up in where I was the scapegoat, I think, something's wrong, it's my fault. And even though it's not my fault, I have no control over that, but that's where my brain goes to, Lafaya. And then I have to, the old habits.
And also taking into account, because you're dealing in old trauma, but then also you said after your husband passed, right? So then we're in active grief at that point. And nobody gets to put a time frame on how long we grieve. But while we're grieving, or when we're, kind of actively in grief and we're not in, we may be in that, we can get to acceptance, right? We can get there. But there are levels to that as well. But until we get there where we're, that full actualization's in about everything kind of, which how many people would get all the way there anyway, but, to acceptance, right, until we're there, then our anxieties or, if we deal in depression and things like that, they're going to be upticked, right, from these things as well. So you can have multiple, right, things going on contributing to that increased anxiety.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. And it was like one thing after another the past 5 years. Your book, and I have to admit, let's say I don't know anything about poker. I never played poker. But I like your book cover, and I like the name of it. Poker, A Woman's Game, The Poker Therapist's Mental Game Strategies for Winning. What motivated you to write your book? And I know that you really enjoyed poker. And if I remember, did you meet your husband playing poker?
I did. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's so much to this story. Okay, so let me try to give you the short version. But okay, so I knew nothing about poker until I saw it on television at age 33. First and foremost. Okay, I was 33 years old, knew absolutely nothing about poker. I saw it on the sports channel, ESPN. And the first thing I thought about it was, why is this card game on the sports channel? That's like the silliest thing I've ever seen. and I was actually almost personally offended because, you know, I'm an ex-basketball player, so I'm like, that is not a sport, right? And but anyway, the next time I saw it on television, I was like, you know what? I heard a couple of words. Now, you probably laugh at me now, but heard a couple of words that sounded familiar to me, like straight and three of a kind, right? Mm-hmm. Things like in a pair, right? Things like that, because those are all Yahtzee terms. And I love Yahtzee. And so I was like, wait a minute, is this game like Yahtzee? And I was like, let me just like pay attention to it for a minute and see what it's all about. And then once I figured out that there was a psychological component to the game, I was like, oh, okay, I have to learn how to play this game. So that's how all that got started. You know, psychology is my life. I love it. And I love the things that I was seeing too. And I love watching the players play because honestly, I feel like a lot of the players are on the spectrum, honestly, just being honest.
Well, you know what? I could understand that.
So it drew my attention. It drew a lot of my attention. Anyway, so I would actually practice with my clients in therapy. We had play therapy, and the best kind of play therapy for a teenager is to play a game that, you know, is kind of shunned by some of society. They're like excited. They're like, oh, of course I asked for the parents' permission, like, oh, we're doing something, you know, almost kind of bad. In therapy. Oh, all of a sudden I had kids just opening up about everything while we're playing. And creating these great therapeutic relationships and stuff. And so then now when I'm teaching them, you know, certain strategies and certain things, they're all sold. Like, because now, you know, I've captured them.
That's cool. I like that.
Yes, it was very, very cool. And so, anyway, I finally got the nerve to go to one of our local places because I would see the small little Texas Hold'em, it was a hole in the wall, Texas Hold'em sign. And I'm like, I'm going to go in one day and just try it, you know. And so I went in there. I had about $100 because I'm I'm not a huge gambler. I don't love to spend money, lose money. I don't like that. So I went there with about $100 and found out that they had a little game that I could pay $40 to play in. And of course I was excited. I was like, oh, I only have to use $40. And went in there. I think I was the luckiest. I didn't know what I was doing. Everything, you know, worked like magic and gold that day. The only time that ever happened in my life. And you know, and then I was like, you know, I really do like this game. And so then I learned how to play. I met my husband there. He saw me before I saw him. I was so wrapped up in trying to figure things out, I didn't see him. But he saw me because I was winning everything. And then he became more of what I felt like was my bully at first because he was a good player. Good players know that you know, kind of go after the players that are new and weak players because, you know, those are the ones that are going to give you the most wins. And so I did not like him very much at all when he first came onto my radar. And then, you know, one day I was like, oh, okay, you know what, he's not such, I saw him kind of in a more of a social atmosphere. I was like, oh, he's not a bad guy. And I thought, oh, he's going to teach me how to play poker because I didn't really know how to play, you know. He's going to teach me all that strategy stuff I don't understand. And slowly but surely he did, against his own will. He was very against it. He didn't want to teach me. I was asking him a bunch of questions. He didn't really want to answer, but he couldn't resist because, you know, I'm charming. He couldn't resist. And so then that's how I met him, and then we became really good friends for about 3 years. And then I realized that I actually had some feelings for him. Had no clue until after 3 years. And so yeah, but that's how we met. And and then, sorry.
That's sweet. No, that's cute. I love that.
And then after many, many years, let me speed this up. Then after many years then of playing, and we've been now going to go to courses, I'm learning how to play because there's a very strong strategy to the game. And then I started to learn that they had a whole mental game aspect that they would teach to people as well, and that's where I struggled a lot. So I was learning a lot of the strategy, but nothing about the mental game, and not really actually making the connection between my work in mental health and the mental part of that game. In that game, we remember I talked about past traumas and how we could be re-triggered. I was always re-triggered because I grew up very, very poor. I grew up, always wondering, if we were going to be okay. And so doing things like going out to play poker where, there's a chance to lose all of your chips all the time, right? When you're in there was something that was causing me quite a bit of, like, panicky feelings when I played, right? And so I met with a mental game strategist. And when he started to kind of teach me some of what he knows, I recognized right away, I was like, oh, my goodness, I teach all of this and more to my clients. Never made the connection before that. And I'm like, and I believe that the 4 steps that I teach to my parents on how to keep their, how to prevent from, oh my goodness, there's so much attached to this, but how to prevent from provoking their kids, and I don't mean provoking in a negative way, parents out there, I'm not parent blaming. I'm just saying sometimes we're unintentionally putting the wrong energy in and getting the wrong reactions from our kids. So no blaming, it's just unintentional, okay? So, but the 4 steps I would teach parents on how to avoid doing that would work very well for what it was I was dealing with in poker, in what's called tilting in poker. And so, then after that, it just became kind of like, oh, this is interesting. Let's figure out how it all comes together.
Wow, that's I don't know anything about poker at all. I do remember seeing it on TV though, so I had a laugh when you're talking about seeing it on ESPN because it was on TV. And I'm thinking, man, how boring is that to be watching poker games for a long time? I'm not one for sports anyway, but that just, I think my mother's, I would go over to my mother's parents' house. They would play poker or some kind of game. I think it was poker, though. But I never really got into that. But as you're mentioning about, I'm thinking of the movie Rain Man, with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, and how he counted, how he was winning because he was memorizing all that. So I would think that a game of like poker would be very interesting an easy game in a way for someone who was high functioning because they can memorize the rules, the hands. There's, great at memorizing, remembering things.
They have savant-like skills where they can recognize patterns, pick up on the patterns, and also keep track in their minds of all the statistical likelihoods that how hands will play out. You can tell by the way other people play hands, what you have in your hand. You can actually calculate out the odds of them having what hands they have. You can calculate out what they think you might have based on your play. There's so many facets to it that those who are high functioning on the autism spectrum, high functioning end, I believe most of our best players out there would be considered with the old school Asperger's, but now high functioning autism is what it's called.
I would not be surprised. So where do they get the name poker face? They have their poker face on. Is that to show no expression so you don't give away your hand?
That's exactly it. And again, that favors those who are of blunt affect. Blunted affect, right? They don't show much expressiveness in the face anyway. That
is just too funny. I don't know why. I just thought of that, the movie, and Dustin Hoffman being in the casino when you're talking about that, because I think they asked him to leave. Because
they definitely did. He was winning.
Yeah, because he was winning. Yeah. And yeah, it's just fascinating. I have to share this story with you in the audience. When I was talking before about respect, there's a young man who calls me once in a while. He went to school with Josh, and he's on the spectrum, and he memorizes things like I can't believe I'm not telling him, I go, listen, I barely can remember what he did last week, let alone 20 years ago. Right. But he said to me, and he always says this to me when he calls me, he said, Betsy, you treat me with respect and dignity. I feel so good around you.
Yes.
And how it's like it's heartbreaking when people don't get treated with respect. So I that just came up in my mind, and I just want to tell the audience, please treat people how you want to be treated, because I always say, by the grace of God go I. Any fall, automobile accident, stroke, anything can happen to anyone at any time. And think about how you will want to be treated if you don't have all your faculties together. If you're in a wheelchair, if you're using a walker, how would you want someone to treat you? And, people might think I'm a little harsh. I don't apologize for it, Lafaya. I am a Jersey girl and my father's daughter. I just say it how it is. I'm just very straightforward that way.
No, that's
and I don't
right.
sugarcoat. Yeah, I don't sugarcoat anything. Excuse me. And you do a lot of work with parents. Can you talk about the services that you offer? And I'll ask you about, how people could get in contact with you. But you offer a lot of great, I call it counseling services for parents. And I know you're in California, but do you do Zoom for people that are in other states?
Yes, I do. I actually, you're right, I offer quite a few services. I have in my history done a lot of work with just families, parents, families, the kids. Usually I work with the entire unit, so siblings included. So this is just to provide the education that they need in order to kind of get themselves on track with, and I think you mentioned it in the bio portion, but kind of, more on track as far as responding in alignment with what they truly intend. Because most parents are, they love their children. They want what's best for them. But there are a lot of parental mistakes that we as parents can make out there if we're not informed, especially with our kids out there that I call the passers, okay? The kids that maybe they're on the either, the higher functioning end of the spectrum, or maybe they're not diagnosed at all. They just, but that they're a little different. They don't function, right? Quite, quite the same as everyone else, right? So learning how to work with those differences becomes very important. What I've started to do more of over the years is do more parent trainings that I call it my PEP trainings, Parents Empowering Parents. So I like to bring together small groups of parents and educate them on my 4 core, I call them the Lafaya Way Core 4, because this helps them to start to have better interactions and understand their own, the reasons behind some of the parents themselves, their own reactions to the kids, because there's a lot of pieces to it. Like many parents experience parental grief, and they don't realize it. They have to grieve that idealized version of their child that they had in their head, that they never. Like I said, none of this is intentional. None of us get a manual, right, on how to raise our kids. But there are just certain things that just are automatic for us. We just assume that our kids will, be able to communicate with us, right, on time and be able to respond in ways that are considered typical in society, right? Like, and I'm putting in air quotes, caring about what others care about, things like that. And if they don't care about what we care about, then the assumption is made that they don't care about us, or that they're selfish, or they're, all these things. And so, what I do is I teach them, how it works a bit differently, and that they care, that the kids care. It's just the way that they show their caring is in a different way, and that there are certain portions that may be lacking or missing for them from their literal brain biology to be able to respond in the ways that we're expecting. So, like that show, and it's always bugged me too. That idea that people on the spectrum can't show empathy. I think they've done away with that finally, but sometimes it still comes out every once in a while. But that's not the truth. The way that they show empathy is in the way that you teach them how to show empathy is you go a different way about doing it, right? And so, but yeah, not enough mirror neurons have something to do with that. So they're not able to connect viscerally to other people's experiences. They're not. So if, say, a neurotypical child were to see another person, say, crying and sad or something, right? For your typical neurotypical kid, they'd feel that, right? And for some who are on the spectrum, not all, because that's not true for all on the spectrum either, they're not able to literally feel that. So then the ability to connect with the way the other person is feeling is hindered a bit, right? So then you deal with them slightly different. But anyway, I go through, I have my trainings go through, it's 4 modules, and I teach them the 4 steps. And by the time they come to the other end of it, they're able to relate with their child who is or is not on the spectrum, maybe just slightly made differently, wired differently, better than what they were before. And so
I love that.
I do that for individual parents, and then it kind of expanded out to one-to-many. So then I started to do this through a few nonprofit agencies. I would train their staff so that they can work with the parents. So it's kind of grown.
Wow, that is so incredible. I'm getting verklempt here because I could have used you 40 years ago.
Oh.
You were just knee-high to a grasshopper, probably. It's so true, parental grief. I experienced that. I did, folks. When you think your child, and I hate to use the word normal, but I don't know what else to use, but and then you find out there's something, they're different, and then your hopes and dreams are crashed. And it took me a long time to adjust to my view of what I had for my son. And, I did, but and there was no one to talk to at that time, because at that time they blamed the mother, that there was something different about the child. I was told that I was overprotective mother, but my son was lazy, and I don't know what you call it, special needs at that time, which is what it was called, they really weren't addressed like they are now. And I'm glad things have improved with getting services. There's more mental health available. And, it's true how people, the kids respond. Now, my husband, Matt, and I, we were huggers. We love to hug. Joshua doesn't like to hug. I know he loves me. He tells me every day, but he's not a hugger. He will not come up and hug me. But when he was young, he'd like to sit on my lap, but he was not a hugger. And they had that sensory. Some people don't like to be touched. They don't like certain materials, certain fabrics. Excuse me, touching them. And, that was, that took some getting used to. But I had to tell you this, Lafaya, and I know the one has heard it before. Josh was so good with his father. My husband had early onset Alzheimer's. And Josh was so good with caregiving, and he took it seriously, and he was proud to be a caregiver. He was so proud. He would wear a T-shirt that said, caregiving is my superpower. And he was really funny with some people. Somebody in church said, Josh, I'd call your dad up, but he won't know who I am. And, they say out of the mouth of babes. Josh said, well, it's not hard, Brother Bill. You call up, you say, hey, Brother Matt, how are you? I'm so-and-so from, wherever, and how you doing today? When he says it's not rocket science, I cracked up laughing.
I absolutely love that because, and that is wonderful how clearly you guys did a wonderful job with Josh. And the abilities that they do have can become like superpowers because that ability to use that super logical brain, right, at times where other people cannot. So they're caught up in emotions, so they're mistreating people, right? Like people who, again, are, accidentally mistreating people. Whereas you can have people, certain people on the spectrum that will know exactly what to do because it makes sense to do that. And they will be fully engaged when it makes sense to do it. They don't get fully engaged in things that don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But they'll get fully engaged in things that make logical sense. It can make working with them a beautiful thing. Like my daughter, for example, if it doesn't make sense, she's like, I'm not interested. I'm disinterested. But if there's really a need, right, like somebody really has an authentic need, she is so there for them, like with everything she has, without tiring, because it makes sense to her that they have that need, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does, because I was amazed because Josh understood more about Alzheimer's than so-called intelligent people. And Josh did not like when people would joke about Alzheimer's because he would tell me it's not a joke. Now, yes, in our house, we would have a dark sense of humor that we needed to survive.
Of course.
But it's when people would just make jokes and making fun of people, that's different. And he would say, oh, no, that's no joke. And Josh just really was, he's a blessing, and
yeah.
When he went to a funeral of someone who was actually my age, we went to grammar school together, and he said, Mom, I cried at Deborah's funeral. Was that okay? I said, of course it's okay. Shows you have compassion. That's beautiful.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with crying. And
yes.
I think, and I say this all the time, in raising boys, we need to teach them that it's okay to cry about losing someone, and to show, feelings in a constructive environment and a supportive environment. And I've been a mental health advocate for many, many years. And the one good thing about COVID is that it brought mental health to the forefront, which should have always been there. But when celebrities said, oh, I suffer from depression, I'm going for support, it made it more acceptable. It should have always been acceptable. Yes. And I just, really am a very strong mental health advocate, and I love the work that you're doing and helping parents. I don't know if you would consider me on the spectrum, but I was very shy when I was younger. I'm still shy. People don't believe that, but I am. And my mother would force me to go to youth group meetings and force me to go to dances, and I was miserable. And she would say, did you have a good time? No. Nobody talked to me. Well, did you talk to them? No. And I don't, what do you do if you have a shy child? Do you push them to socialize, or what do you do with that situation?
I think with a shy child, the most logical thing to do is to, if you're going to promote, right, interaction with others, you don't just throw them into groups, into large groups of people, and say, here, go to this dance, or here, go do this thing. You do much better to maybe try to arrange for maybe one-on-ones with people who are similar, maybe similar, where there's the shyness is there, and maybe you can kind of do kind of a warm, get together. You find somebody that they already maybe like or are comfortable with. It'd be even better if you found someone that's their age, that you can kind of put one person that's kind of social that they get along with, right, together with them, maybe another shy person, and try to see how that goes. Make suggestions for what to do, because a lot of times, shy people are just afraid of those things, like those weird, awkward silences, and because they don't have anything to say, and and not having anything to do, or you know what I mean, or feeling like the other person's going to feel like they're weird or boring, or those kind of things. So really having activities planned where you can talk to the three about, hey, what do you guys like to do? What kind of, I'm old school, so like, what kind of board games do you like? Card games do you like? Stuff that's going to set them up for some interaction.
Yeah, that was
each individual on a phone.
Yeah, no, those are good ideas, because I didn't like being pushed to socialize.
Right.
And especially if you feel insecure, and it's just being into being forced into this group of people. And to this day, I don't like being in large groups. One-to-one, I'm fine. But put me in a group of people, you wouldn't even know I'm in the room. People would say they don't believe that. But, people would be like, well, how do you talk to people, interview people? I don't have a problem with that, because it's one-to-one.
But guess what? It's all purpose.
Different.
There's a purpose to it. There's a mission that you have, and you're drawing from them, kind of aspects of meeting that mission. So it makes sense, right? I'm the same. I'm not the most social person in the world. People don't believe that either, because I think I can be loud and bubbly and all those kind of things. I love to laugh. I love all those things. But truly, my husband is my true other. We are very alike, and most of the time we are attached to each other at the hip, and I do not spend a lot of time with other people.
I can understand that. Yes, yeah. That's Matt was a homebody. He didn't like socializing. So
I've always been a homebody.
Yeah, socialize much, and it's funny because Josh, he loves to socialize, and he goes to karaoke once a week, which I think is great. And he's much more sociable than his father was, and that I am. So, and it's great to see, because he was very shy when he was younger. So that's really a big step. So I'm very happy about that. I'm very proud of, I tell him all the time, I'm proud of him. And it's a blessing to be his mom. I was blessed. Yeah. Didn't see it 41. Well, he'll be 41 in July, but I see it now. God blessed me. Tremendously. Lafaya, where can people purchase your book, The Poker, a woman's game, the poker therapist, a mental game, strategies for winning? Where can people purchase that?
Okay, so you guys can purchase that through either Amazon. They go to Amazon.com. If you search the name of the book, Poker, a Women's Game, they'll take you straight to it. And also BarnesandNoble.com. And I do plan on finishing up an audio version that I've been working on. So that should be coming I would hope in the next few weeks. But me and audio, we don't get along. But I just make mistakes, and I have to keep thinking and rethinking and rereading. But when I'm reading, now just talking, I'm fine. But reading my own book, oh my goodness. But but yeah, audio version should be coming out soon. I also have another book, guys, coming out that I have not decided on the title yet, but it is my love note to pastors, to the kids out there that don't fit in, but really want to, crave that social interaction, but have such a hard time with it. I'm actually writing a book to them right now. And I feel like I'm kind of one of those kids too. So I very much, it's just like my love project. So that'll be coming out soon too. But you guys can keep up and hear more about all of these things, okay? If you listen in on my podcast, the Lafaya Way podcast, Mastering the Mental Game of Life, with a poker twist, right? Kim put all those words in there, but with a poker twist. So I'm going to be relating the things in life, it's in a fun way, to poker concepts. So I won't be talking pure poker. What I tell people is I'm not a professional poker player, right? I'm a professional therapist who plays poker at a professional level. Okay?
No.
So that's who I am. So it's more on the mental game of life, and then throwing in some of those fun concepts like tilt in poker that can help people relate in a lighter way, right? So you can keep up with some of my newer happenings there. You can find everything at lafayaway.com. Guys, like lafayaway.com will take you to everything. So that's like kind of my center.
Okay. That's great. And what outlets is your podcast? Do you on Apple, or is that listed on your
right now,
on your website?
Yes. So
we'll great. Okay.
We'll be posting them, and I might use the wrong words because again I'm old school thinking, but we'll post them all on YouTube for sure, and then we'll be working through Spotify and Apple for the rest.
Okay.
So for the podcast portion. Okay. So you'll get the video version basically on YouTube, and then the audio versions through Spotify and Apple.
Oh, great. Well, folks, I'll tell you what, I definitely am going to have to listen to Lafaya's podcast because I just love talking to you in this show. And thank you so much, Lafaya Mitchell, for coming on. I so enjoyed talking to you. You are amazing. And, folks, all the information about Lafaya Mitchell will be in the blog that Jeannie White, who's the station manager, writes and produces the show. I would definitely go on Lafaya's website, which will be in the blog, because she is so fascinating. I didn't even mention half the things about Lafaya because it'll take up the whole show. But there's so much that Lafaya has done, and I would definitely take a look at the website and get her book or books. And it just was wonderful talking to you, Lafaya. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I appreciate all that you do to help others.
Yes, thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much for having me, Betsy. And I'm hoping that I can invite you over because I'd love to have you on my podcast. It's all about playing the hand you're dealt, right? So often in life we're kind of dealt bad hands, and it's not about it's not about the hand. It's about how you play it, right?
That's right.
And you're so encouraging. So I'd love to invite you later, of course, because we're ending, but talk about it.
Sure. Well, I would love to come on because there's definitely a lot I can talk about. That's for sure. As I tell people, I could tell how to survive and thrive during caregiving. And, definitely, how to survive and thrive during grieving. I mean, I could talk about a lot of different topics. But yes, I would love that. And folks, you can follow me on Facebook, Betsy E. Wurzel, Wurzel, and I have a support group, #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement. If you're looking for a support group, if you're a caregiver. And, always, folks, as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you can be anything, to please be kind and shine your light bright, because we need it now more than ever before. And thank you for listening, subscribing. If you don't already subscribe, it is for free. On Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, iHeart, to name just a few. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Share this show to help other people. Tell people about Lafaya. She wants to hear from you. Go on her website. Listen to her podcast. I'm here to help people, and I love to promote other people because I don't have all the answers, and I listen to other podcasts. Nothing wrong with that. I listen to a lot of different podcasts. So, anyone who could help me, I'm listening. And I recommend you do the same. And that's all I have to say today, folks. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passion World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Till we chat again, be safe, everyone. Bye-bye now.